All right. Well, a big welcome to everybody tuning in today to our session on options to support you. My name is Natasha and I'm one of the Senior Support Services Coordinators at LBC, and I'm based in Auckland. This is our last Blood Cancer Patient Forum talk for 2022, and we have 3 great speakers today focusing on options to support you. Please send through your questions in the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen as we go. And please be aware that this video will be uploaded on our YouTube page in the days to come. So to kick things off, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Carol Rose. Carol is a clinical aromatherapist and educator who specialises in supporting those with progressive and life-limiting illnesses, and is the lead therapist at her local hospice. I'll now hand over to you, Carol. Thanks so much.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you so much, Natasha, for a lovely warm welcome. It's a privilege to be invited back to this forum. So kia ora to everyone that's listening in today. And for me, it's, my thanks to LBC for your generous invitation and support. So I've been asked to share some of the techniques that I use in my work as a clinical aromatherapist. I am a nurse by background, and as a therapist, I specialise in people with life-threatening, progressive and life-limiting illness. Excuse me. So I work with approaches designed for that person's unique presentation, whether it's emotional, social, spiritual, physical. It's about taking that holistic view with the aim of being able to help that person to cope with their illness, its limitations and treatment burden in a way that works for them. So I'm just going to start now by sharing my screen, and just bear with here. Okay, so hopefully now you should be seeing, just get my little annotation, little mouse up. You should be seeing the that I'm going to be speaking today about the ways in which we can foster our resilience and well-being using aromatherapy, but also using our other sensory organs. So we'll start today with a brief overview excuse me, of resilience in the context of ill health, and particularly those factors which underpin resilience. And this will lay the foundations perfectly for us to consider the very vital role of aromatherapy. Now, some of you may not be familiar with aromatherapy, so we will at that point take a brief look at the tools of my trade, which are essential oils, and also how we determine their therapeutic action. And that will then lead us into some of the aromatherapy approaches that you can be doing yourself at home to help reinforce your coping mechanisms. And we'll be looking at things to apply to the skin through inhalation, and also the use of our sense of smell for well-being, as well as other supportive approaches. So many of the people I see have been on a long illness journey where the physical, the spiritual, the emotional impact of a life-threatening diagnosis can be difficult to cope with. And many of you listening today will really know how illness frequently presents those situations of complex adversity. And whilst many of you are able to handle really stressful situations, not everyone reacts to adversity in the same way. Some people are simply more resilient than others. So it really makes sense for us to consider what the factors are that underpin resilience. Now, as it relates to a life-threatening illness, such as blood cancer or a other blood-related disorder, resilience has been widely investigated. And these two pieces of work are probably the most major pieces of work done in the last decade. And both authors, Melina and Sila and Jenevine, they both came up with the same conclusion, that patients who express greater resilience actually experience less psychological distress and are much more adjusted to their illness. So the factors which underpin resilience at the top there, and it's consistent, are positive emotions, and they're associated with enhancing resilience to help reduce stress and aid adjustment to a life-threatening diagnosis. Similarly, your social circumstances, where there are supportive, meaningful relationships, where you have the perception of being loved and valued and esteemed by others, particularly your loyal and dependable family and friends. Positive coping strategies, we're going to go through a few today, and they're critical in reducing emotional distress and improving quality of life. And finally, the top three aspects which patients consistently report as being central to their support are optimism, hope, and spirituality. So early recognition of our resilience and of these four common areas is absolutely crucial, so we can start you can start using approaches to help you cope as early into the piece as possible. And resilience itself requires that starting point. It needs that set of adverse circumstances, and in this context that inevitably starts at the point of diagnosis. Now, as many of you have experienced, this is a critical time because the lives of you and your family have been changed forever. And there's so little time to process what's happening, what your diagnosis means, what the treatment involves, what this holds for your future. Suddenly, the life as you knew it has been totally upended, and you're trying to struggle with making sense of what's actually happening, learning a new language, the medical terminology, and navigate complex healthcare systems. And those pathways from diagnosis onwards are often unpredictable and fraught with those critical moments, investigations, scans, blood tests, appointments, treatments, and supportive care. So it's really not surprising that it can trigger intense emotional reactions and raise those deep existential questions of purpose and meaning. So it's quite normal to experience some level of anxiety as you navigate this maze from diagnosis onwards that starts unfolding. And anxiety will peak at those critical moments along the illness journey. And when we're dealing with such high levels of stress that are peaking and continuing, when it's happening for prolonged periods of time, there is an increased risk of developing depression. And in times of adversity, our spiritual well-being is often challenged, often to the extent of developing spiritual distress. So spiritual distress doesn't generally manifest as a set of predetermined symptoms. It's rather an expression of distress which is unique to each individual. And the most commonly reported, the top three, are fear, insecurity, and nervousness, followed by anxiety and depression, panic attacks, uncertainty, and fear of the unknown. Now, all too often, the focus of attention in healthcare tends to be heavily weighted on the physical aspects of illness. It may be on symptom management and so forth, and it's not enough emphasis is placed on a person's emotional, social, and spiritual well-being. And yet these are the factors that we know underpin our innate capacity to cope. So a central part of fostering resilience is to really value a person's uniqueness as it stands in the context of their physical, social, emotional, and spiritual presentation. Now, many complementary therapies work within the realms of this mind, body, spirit, holistic care model, particularly aromatherapy, and emotional and spiritual distress as central domains of holistic aromatherapy. They've been well researched, and particularly in the cancer population. And it's a combination with holistic aromatherapy of that holistic approach with the appropriate essential oils, the applications that are suited to that individual person, combined with that therapist-client relationship. And that makes aromatherapy a very highly valuable therapy where resilience is concerned. So when we ask the question, what is aromatherapy? The tools of my trade, as I've said, are essential oils. And an essential oil is a complex, concentrated chemical components that are derived from most aromatic plants, not all, and it depends on the individual plant as to where those volatile compounds actually reside. And when I use the word volatile, I don't mean angry, I'm meaning that they evaporate easily. And so in some plants, it may come from things like the petals of the rose, as we got here, or the flowering heads. It could come from the berries, or in citrus, it comes from the rind. It could come from wood or bark, even the root. In some, it's from grass or the seeds. And so it depends on the plant as to where we extract. And the most common extraction methods are steam distillation, or for citrus rind, it's through cold expression techniques. And the aim of any of these extraction processes is to preserve as many of the oil's unique and complex chemistry as possible. Now, each essential oil is comprised of a range of different volatile chemical compounds, and these compounds belong to various chemical classes, the most common being the hydrocarbons, monoterpenes, sesquiterpenes, and diterpenes, and also we've got the oxygenated compounds. And within each of these little subsections, each of these will have several hundred different compounds in that classification. So essential oils are complex substances. Each oil will contain anything from 30 to up to and over 300 different chemical components, and the vast majority of these are in tiny trace amounts, less than 1%. But when we come to determining a therapeutic action of an oil, when we're looking at the chemistry, we can see that there's going to be higher levels of some things, some of those components. So, for example, the lovely high-altitude lavender that is often associated with calming the body, very useful for sleep, very useful for calming the central nervous system. And that's because within the high altitude lavender, we've got high levels of linalool, which is an alcohol, and also high levels of the ester linearyl acetate. And where those peak, that we know that that combination and the high percentage will help just calm that central nervous system and give us the therapeutic actions that were so familiar to us with lavender oil. So as a therapist, when I'm working alongside a person, the most important thing is to identify that individual's priority of concern. And when we're looking at emotional and spiritual issues, this may be things like sleep disturbance, anxiety, it could be panic attacks, nervousness, fragility, it could be intense worry or depression. And once we've identified exactly what that person is presenting with on that day, I'll select a small range of essential oils, about between 4 and 6 different oils that I know are going to help that person's specific issues that they're presenting with. And from there, that person will then, I'll invite them to choose 2 or 3 oils that they really connect with, and for them to continue working with. Then we can look at how we're going to apply them, and a person can then choose whether it's by a skin absorption or aromatic inhalation. And these two methods of application generally tend to be common with holistic aromatherapy approaches. So we'll just look at these in turn. So with skin absorption, we don't generally apply essential oils neat to the skin. Several of those chemical compounds can be quite reactionary if applied neat to the skin. So we tend to dilute the essential oil. Now, I don't know if you're going to see this in the camera, but when an essential oil arrives at its final destination in the little tiny bottles, they're highly concentrated. At this point, the concentration is almost 100%, which is far too high to be applying directly to the skin. So we'll dilute in a fixed oil, a vegetable or a nut oil, something like grapeseed or sweet almond or apricot kernel oil. And we will reduce that concentration down to about 1 or 2%, depending on that person's age or state of health. Sometimes I'll even go lower than that. And then that lovely blend really lends itself to diffusing through the layers of the skin into the general circulation. So it's warmly received by slow stroke relaxation massage, beautiful aromatherapy massage where you have the whole experience of the essential oils. You're inhaling them, they're absorbing through the skin. You've got the skillful touch of the massage therapist. And you can get a very deep level relaxation simply by a hand massage, or foot, even a face, or a back, neck and shoulders. It's rare that I'll do a full body massage in somebody with who's undergoing maybe treatment or is in a state of poor health or has high level intensity fatigue, because a full body massage in itself can be quite depleting of somebody's energy, and you can get equal amounts of relaxation effects in the shorter sessions. Now, for those of you who enjoy being enveloped in warm water and that sense of weightlessness, an aromatic bath is the thing for you. So again, we're diluting those essential oils in at least 2 generous teaspoons of a fixed oil. And then that can be swished into the bath. It's not going to disperse through the water. You can add dispersants, but they become very costly when you're doing sort of large areas like a bath. So pop a slip mat into the bath and just make sure, you might need somebody there to help you in and out of the bath, because the oil will sit on the surface of the water. And it's a multi sort of modal therapy, an aromatic bath, because the steam will carry those aromatic molecules and you'll be breathing that in. The heat will be increasing the absorption of the oils through the skin, but also the heat will penetrate deeply to the core. And that's really useful for those of you who may be experiencing chills or that deep, impenetrable cold, which comes sometimes through illness, or it comes sometimes through side effects of treatments such as chemotherapy. And some of you may prefer just something more simple, an aromatic foot bath. 1 drop of essential oil and a generous teaspoon of fixed oil, and you can pop that into a lovely bowl or a bucket, or I've seen people even use a chili bin. And you can just soak your feet for about 10 minutes. It's a beautiful level of relaxation. In fact, the Japanese really advocate foot bath, because they believe that a 10-minute warm foot bath will give you the equivalent relaxation of a full body massage. So it's a deep level of relaxation. Don't underestimate it. So you could incorporate that either into your morning routine. Use a citrus oil, which is zingy and zesty and very uplifting, will clear that brain fog that can often happen. Or you could incorporate it, for example, into your evening routine, where you'd use something more relaxing and take that into your bedtime ritual. For me, when we're dealing with things like emotional and spiritual issues, particularly around that sort of mental well-being, excuse me, aromatic inhalation is the most powerful way to get a therapeutic effect happening quickly. And that's because it uses our sense of smell. I've lost my little mouse here. Where is it? No, here. So olfaction is our sense of smell. So I'll just talk you through that with this diagram here. So we've got the lovely rose giving off its aromatic molecules here. And as we're breathing those molecules in, at the back of the bridge of the nose, we've got our olfactory nerve, the bulb of which sits here at the back of the bridge of the nose and connects here to this area, the limbic system. Excuse me, I just been doing a bit too much talking, I think, today. So those aromatic molecules will attach to millions here of microscopic receptors of this olfactory bulb. Those aromatic molecules attach. A translation of information takes place into an electrical impulse, which scoots along this nerve into this emotional center, the limbic system. And when I say scoot, it's a split second. It is so fast. Now, there are several structures in this limbic system, and the ones we're interested in today, excuse me, are the amygdala, which governs our emotions. So our anger, our fear, our frustrations, our panic. And also we have the hypothalamus, and the hypothalamus takes control of our whole stress axis. So it talks with the pituitary gland, with the adrenal glands that sit on top of our kidneys, and it's dictating and determining what stress hormones need to be released. So it may be that you need a short, sharp burst of something. You may perhaps be having a blood test or a scan, and you'll get a burst of adrenaline delivered via that hypothalamic route. But also the hypothalamus will regulate that particularly when we're going through treatments and along that illness journey, that there will be high levels of stress for long periods of time with those critical peaks, as we talked about. And hypothalamus then will direct the other stress hormone for longevity, and that's cortisol. So through simple inhalation, we can direct essential oils to target the amygdala and the hypothalamus simply through inhaling, and then it will target directly to those organs those structures in the limbic system, and will have an immense control on calming the central nervous system. It's very, very powerful and very, very quick. Now, I can't leave this slide without talking about hippocampus. And hippocampus is an important structure because one of its major roles is to create, store, and retrieve aromatic memory. So when we smell something for the first time, hippocampus will create almost like a sensory snapshot. That's for want of a simple explanation. And it will take into account what we're seeing, thinking, feeling, tasting, hearing, all of that sensorial experience, and it will store it until we next smell that aroma. And, you know, that could be a week later, it could be 50 years later. And hippocampus will retrieve that sensorial information, and we can experience all of that same feeling that we did however long ago we first smelt that aroma. So it's that aha moment, that moment when we smell something, we say, oh, it reminds me of. For me, a good example is seaweed. I'll smell seaweed and I'm transported back to Carol, age 4, and puddling around in rock pools with my little shrimp net, trying to catch little fishes and crabs that are running around. And I had a beautiful session with a lady not that long ago, and she was well into her 70s and with ill health, and had a huge amount of anxiety and pressure and worry that was going on for her. And during that session, we just simply worked with 1 drop of sandalwood essential oil on a tissue, and she just worked smelling that. And sandal was very good for her situation in particular, but for calm. But what it did for her was suddenly she was transported back to when she was age 6, and her mother had gifted her a beautiful little ornate box, a carefully carved box. It was a sandalwood box, and in that she kept all the little treasures that a 6-year-old would keep. And we spent that entire session working just on what was in the box and how she felt with that. And what it had done was taken her from that space of intense anxiety and worry. And we had managed, just through a few inhalations of that sandalwood, to take her to that space of comfort where she was with her mother, where she was remembering that little treasure box and all the beautiful feelings that it raised for her. Very, very powerful. And as I said, very, very fast. So the ways we can use aromatic inhalation using an essential oil would be, as I've said, about the tissue. We can also use these inhalation devices where we load the wick with essential oils, and that resides in this central chamber, and the nozzle cap holds the whole thing together. And we just simply open up that device, and the essential oils will evaporate out of these air vents here. And it's a matter of simply breathing in through our nose and exhaling out through our mouth. And 4 or 8 breaths will give you a really deep effect with whatever oils are used, or we can just have a quick 1 or 2 breaths for that quick uplift during the day. Aromatic diffusion is also extremely popular. We do have safety criteria. 30 minutes 2 or 3 times a day is absolutely adequate. I see people diffusing for hours on end. They'll have little devices plugged into their computer, working all day with it. And that can be overwhelming at times to the central nervous system. And I've known people to get sort of headaches and nausea from overuse of diffusion. So just stick to the safety criteria there. And the other route, which is really useful, is just to put 2 or 3 drops of essential oil on a ceramic dish, place that into your shower, and those aromatic molecules will be carried by the steam of the warm shower. Absolutely wonderful for citrus oils, where it gives you that zingy, zesty start to a morning if you're a morning shower person. So some of the oils that are really useful, the ones that I tend to lean into, the lovely lavender, the high altitude lavender is a definite on my list. Certainly Roman chamomile and the lovely neroli, the orange blossom. But we've also the citrus I've touched on, and sandalwood. We've got the Australian Fregonia, really peaceful, beautiful oil, as well as things like frankincense and sweet marjoram. So these are some of the oils I use, but we can blend and mix and match things for that individual person. And you don't always have to use essential oil. It can be using fragrance and smells that you are really uniquely comforted by. Everybody's going to be very, very different. So as I said, for me, it was seaweed. It could be chocolate or coffee. It might be an oily rag. It may be, old-fashioned sweets. Anything that takes you back to some a little space in your life that was really, really important for you. So just a little check on our daily resilience. Try to stay present and not to plan beyond a few days, and put some structure into your day. You may like to start your day with something simple, like having your morning tea out in the garden, or some simple breathing, or an aromatic foot bath, or an aromatic shower. You may feel that you have a little bit more energy and you want to prepare a meal for the family in the day. You may have even more energy on that on a certain day and feel that you can tackle tidying up the shed or the pantry or something on those lines. So it's learning to accept that some days are going to be more challenging than others. And on waking, scan yourself. Ask yourself, how do I feel from head to toe? How do I really feel? And it's working within that feeling, you know, not trying to push yourself too hard. Socializing and surrounding yourself with your dependable and loyal family and friends is highly important, as is the LBC support group. There's nothing like sharing your experience with somebody that really understands what you're going through. So that patient-to-patient contact and family-to-family contact can be really, really helpful. And they're very well attended for LBC, which is fantastic. And finally, ground your 5 senses. When we're dealing with emotional and spiritual distress, the anxieties that can happen, that can suddenly escalate, it's about taking your 5 senses and grounding them. And one way of doing that is connecting with nature. And the simple act of stepping into a forest or the New Zealand bush is a powerful way of relaxing the body and taking a mini vacation from life. So the buzzword for this at the moment is forest bathing. I think we'd call it bushwalking, but immersing yourself in nature is known to reduce anxiety, depression, confusion, fatigue and anger, but it also will increase our vigor and our positivity. So I'd like to just in these last few minutes just take us on a little walk through the forest and some of the things that you need to just pick up and be aware of. We've got Tracy and her amazing journaling session next. So these are things that you could be writing in your journal, and she'll go into much more detail than I will about that. So when you enter the bush, just take a moment to notice your body and then let that pass. You'll find that you'll start to walk in your own rhythm. It's not a race. You might just want to stand. You may not want to walk anywhere. But if you do walk, walk as if you're kissing the earth with your feet. The beautiful words of Tay. Ground yourself. Let each of your senses take your thoughts away from daily life and focus them on the present. Look around you as if you're seeing things for the very first time. Feel that childlike awe, particularly when you're looking at something like the detail of a fern frond or the way the light filters through the forest canopy and just licks all the tree trunks of the forest. Take a moment to stop and to listen. Listen to the trickle of water, the chatter of rosellas, the tuneful notes of the tuis. Closing your eyes will help you to search for the deeper sounds of the forest and be very engaged with your listening. And breathe. Breathe in the aroma of the damp earth, the strong, earthy, woody smell of moss, the wet tree trunks and the needle-covered path. And touch things. Feel the roughness of the tree bark, the stickiness of a spider's web, the tickle of moss, the softness of ferns. And bring your awareness underfoot, the knobbly and gnarly roots that you may be walking over. And finally, taste. Taste the droplets of rain and breathe in through your mouth and taste the fresh, earthy forest air. On your next walk, ground yourself with all 5 senses. Capture these moments in your memory and journal them. Collect a few treasures on the way, a sprig of manuka, a piece of tree bark. Because on the days when you feel you don't want to take a walk or the weather's preventing you, you can simply smell the fragrance of the tree bark or the plant, feel the leaves, connect with it again, and allow your aromatic memory to take you on your forest walk. So I'm just going to stop the screen share there and come back to you here. Now, for most of you, inside your little goodie bags, you'll have Stretchy Man. This funny, I'm not sure if I can get it too well on the camera here. This little funny Stretchy Man. Now, if you haven't got one, excuse me, please do get in touch with LBC because they've got extras if needed. I'm just hoping that everything fitted into the bag. So Stretchy Man's a useful little companion to have because we can just simply do some of that breath work. So breathing in, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3, breathing out slowly and controlled, 2, 3. And you can do this with each of the arms and through the legs, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3, and exhale, 2, 3. And by doing each arm, each leg, and not forgetting the head, that's 5 slow, controlled breaths. And controlled breathing is a really important part of just being able to release and reduce that distress and the stress that's happening within the body. And it just allows you to focus your breathing. Very often when we get anxious, we can start shallow breathing or hyper ventilating, and we can control that. This is an option for you to be able to take control of that for yourself. And if all else fails and you just want to stretch the heck out of Stretchy Man, then do so. Okay, thank you all for taking the time to listen, and I look forward to joining you in the Q&A at the end. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Carol. That was a fantastic overview and so many really useful points that we can all apply. So our next speaker that I'll introduce is Tracy Hancock. So Tracy is a life coach who was diagnosed with Hodgkin lymphoma in 2015 and has since recovered. To help through her diagnosis, treatment, and recovery stages, she drew on her experience as a coach and used many of the tools that she talks about with others, including journaling. So whether you're new to journaling, journal regularly, or avoid it completely, this session is sure to give you something that you'll be able to think about. So please send through any questions that you have as we go, and Tracy will address some of these during her talk. And if we miss any of those questions, then we'll be sure to try to address those in the Q&A at the end. So I will now hand you over to Tracy. Thanks, Tracy.
Thank you, Natasha. It's great to be here. And what a session to follow. I have in the background a diffuser. So I have had oils diffusing while Carol Rose was talking, and it had just clicked off actually just as she was wrapping up. My diffuser clicked off, which was a sign that I had had oils diffusing for long enough. So as Natasha said, we are going to talk about journaling. And before I keep talking, Natasha, I just want to flag, can we put the poll up just while I talk, and then we'll be able to look at those results. So what we're just doing is checking in to find out what people's experience is with journaling so that I can get a feel for, oh, look at that. Gosh, I love it. The results are popping up straight away. So, okay, I'm so busy watching that. I can see blue lines telling me who's voting for which option, which has grabbed my attention. So as Natasha mentioned, I am a life coach. I help people get clarity about who they are, what they value, and to feel more confident about creating their life. Now, 7 years ago, I was diagnosed with lymphoma. I think the ultimate test for a life coach who helps others was in turn to help myself. And journaling was one of the tools that I used. I've been journaling for about 25 years. And it's helped me through some pretty big life events in that time. So I'm excited to share with you some information about journaling. I think it's something that gets talked about a lot, but is sometimes not well understood. And it can get put in the too hard basket. It's like it's complicated, it's time consuming. If you Google search journaling, there are so many rules that people say you must follow to journal. And I really want to dispel those myths and make journaling, I don't know, perhaps more appealing, particularly for those who've not tried it or who've tried it and not really enjoyed it. So, and for those of you who do enjoy journaling, perhaps it'll give you some inspiration to explore something a bit further. So let's look at those results so far. So 35% of people have never tried journaling, and what's that split like? My gosh, you're about 50-50. So about 50% of people journal regularly or sometimes, and 50% have tried it, but it wasn't your thing, or never tried it. So that's good to know. Thank you for sharing that with me. Yeah, fantastic. So what I'll just do is I shall share my screen and we will carry on. So I'm just going to end that poll now and get rid of that. Perfect. Awesome. So what we're going to cover in this session is I'm going to talk about what journaling is. As I said, it gets talked about a lot, but I think it can be misunderstood. I want to share some insights about the brain and your mind that gives context to why journaling is so useful. I'm going to talk about how to journal, and then I'm going to share some journal prompts with you at the end. Whoops, going the wrong way. Not a great way to be going. So here we go. We've done the poll. We can skip over that. So journaling is about writing your thoughts and feelings down on paper. And we do that to better understand them, to better understand ourselves, and to get clarity about what our next steps are. Now, I just want to talk about, so I've got in this hand my journal and in this hand a diary, because making diary entries is also something that gets talked about. And I just want to take the opportunity now to explain the difference. So I've just talked about journaling being where we write about our thoughts and feelings. It's quite a reflective, explorative type practice. Whereas using a diary, it's much more about what we did, what we're experiencing in terms of, for those of us who've been on this cancer journey, it might be symptoms, it might be what we're eating, it might be where we went. So it's more of a list of things, whereas journaling's more reflective. Now, neither is better than the other. Both are useful and both have their place. Now, I know when I was going through treatment and certainly those early months of healing once treatment had finished, I was using both. Both were really useful. The diary helped me monitor symptoms. That was where I recorded questions, where I was tracking what I was eating, how I was sleeping. I put that all in my diary. When it came to any stress that I was experiencing, the doubts, the worries, the fears, I would be journaling about those in this book. So hopefully that gives you the distinction between the two. Both are useful. Today's session, I'm primarily talking about journaling, which is that reflective process, which helps us better understand our thoughts and feelings. So, why is this important? So I want to share a bit about your brain and your mind. Now, our brain has a primary purpose, and that is to keep us alive. And it does it in two different ways. It does that by keeping all our bodily systems and functions running. Like, we don't have to think about our heart beating or our digestive system working. It takes care of that for us. The other thing it does is it looks out for danger. Your brain wants to be alert to anything that could be a threat to your life, a threat to your safety. So it's looking out for danger. This means that we have got a bias towards noticing anything that might cause us trouble. And this is where we often find our thoughts are quite negative, or we're jumping to that worst case scenario. And this is part of that mechanism to keep us alive. So brain has one purpose, to keep us alive, 2 different ways. It operates those functions within our body, and it's on the lookout for danger. Now let's take a look at what our mind's doing. Now our mind is incredibly powerful, and it's useful for us to understand these statistics in particular because it's quite empowering when we start to realize we can become more aware of our thoughts and choose our thoughts. So we have between 60 and 70,000 thoughts a day. Now that's a lot of thoughts, isn't it? And I'm not expecting that you'll know all of those thoughts. In fact, we probably know a fraction, like a tiny percentage of those thoughts. 60 to 70,000 thoughts are going through our mind every day. 95% of those thoughts are thoughts that we've had before. We've had them maybe yesterday, last week, last month, last year, last decade. These are thoughts that have been around for a very long time. They're like they're default. They're in there. They're our program. They're like software on your phone, software on your laptop. Now, of those thoughts that we have each day, 80% are negative. Now, remember, our brain wants to keep us alive. So it's always on the lookout for danger. And what we end up doing is storing a lot of these negative thoughts. Now, what I've just shared about the brain and the mind is really useful to know when it comes to journaling. Because for a lot of people, journaling is, oh, I'm just writing stuff down. Does it really make a difference? Is it really worth my time? It really is worth your time, because what's happening is through the process of journaling, we're better understanding our thoughts. We're becoming consciously aware of what we're thinking. So if we remember that our brain wants to keep us alive and our mind is churning through a heap of thoughts every day, and a lot of them are negative and a lot of them we keep repeating. If we don't become aware of those thoughts, we're going to keep repeating patterns. We're going to keep falling back into the same way of behaving, and we're going to feel the same way. So if we constantly feel stressed, worried, or in a state of fear, we're going to be thinking the same thoughts. Those thoughts are generating those feelings. So the act of journaling helps us to become consciously aware of what we're thinking. And when we become aware of what we're thinking, we can depower and de-escalate those doubts and those fears and those worries. Now, this is really, really useful, because if we leave things in our mind, so if we're worried about something, and let's face it, when we've got cancer and we're going through treatment, there's plenty of things that can cause us worries. Now, if we just hold those in our mind, they just keep circling and they keep repeating. Even when we're not aware of it, we're repeating thoughts about all those worries, all those fears, and they keep going round and round and round. And we're going to keep feeling stressed. The worst case scenario, have you ever noticed how they just seem to appear just like that? And this is your brain again. It's latching on to all those thoughts, and it keeps going to the worst case scenarios, and it drags it back. And all that does is drag us down and increases our stress. So one of the reasons that we want to be journaling is we depower and we de-escalate those doubts and fears and worries. We're taking them out of our head, we're getting them down on paper, and the act of writing them we're processing them in a different way. We're looking at them a little more objectively. There's still going to be an emotional charge. It's still an upsetting time, but we're starting to process them in a different way. The other part of journaling that I want to talk about is that you don't just journal when you're facing a challenge. It's incredibly useful when you're facing a challenge. But the other beautiful thing about journaling is it can amplify our focus on positives, like successes, like any progress we're making, the things we're grateful for, the lessons we're learning. So on one hand, we can depower and de-escalate all those doubts and fears and worries. And on the other hand, we can amplify our focus on positives. Now, when I say this about the positives, some people say, but, I'm going through something big, I'm going through cancer. And I'm not asking you to be, crazy, deliriously happy. What we're doing is going, there's some challenges and I want to understand them better. And I also just want to acknowledge that there's some progress and there are some things that I'm grateful for. And maybe you've just learnt about aromatherapy for the first time. You might journal about that. You might journal about what you learned and how that felt and what you want to explore. And I've got some essential oils here, and maybe you tried some and you noticed a difference. That's the sort of thing you could journal about. And this is what I mean by amplifying the positives. By journaling about that experience, it's forming a new neural pathway that's letting you know, oh, that felt good. I think I want to do more of that. So if we're doing the depowering and the de-escalating on one hand, and we're amplifying the positives on the other, together what we're getting is a reduction in stress. The impact and the frequency of the stress can lessen. We're going to be calming our nervous system and supporting our immune system. It's building resilience, and Carol spoke at length about resilience, and journaling is another beautiful way to be building your resilience. And it's helping you to identify your next steps and what you need. Because remember, left in our mind, those thoughts which are predominantly going to be negative will just go round and round and round. Those worst case scenarios will get bigger and worse, and it's going to make things harder. If we can write down what we're thinking and feeling, if we can take a closer look and start to understand that, if we can bring in that focus on the positives, and they can be really small things. I know when I was going through treatment, things like getting up and walking around for 10 minutes, sort of the day after treatment, was a real positive. And so I would make sure I would write about that. The goal of journaling is to help us understand the situation we're in, what's going on, what we're thinking, what we're feeling. It's calming. It's going to reduce that stress we're experiencing, and it's going to help us gain greater clarity. So this is why journaling is so powerful. It's not just words on a page. There's so much more going on, and it's having a really significant physical, emotional, spiritual effect as well. So how to journal? Now, if you were to do a Google search about journaling, there is so much written about what you should do, how many pages you should write, how long you should journal for, that you need to have some fancy journal to write in. And I think it overcomplicates it. Journaling is about writing your thoughts and feelings. And you can do that in a 1B5 exercise book if you chose to. If you want a fancy journal, by all means. But we need to, I think, get rid of some of those rules because they are barriers to us even starting. So I think there are 3 things that we need to journal. A commitment to do it. Because if we tell ourselves that it's impossible, it's really hard, you'll never do it, it's not for you, any of those kinds of statements, then you're right. You won't do it, and it will be hard. So a commitment to do it is simply saying, you know what? I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to give journaling a go. That's our first key step. And remember, Journaling has so many positive benefits. It's going to help you get greater clarity. It's going to help you understand what you're thinking and feeling. It's a safe way to express yourself. You're not having to speak it out loud to someone else. You're writing in a journal, in a book. That's your private space. You don't have to worry about spelling or grammar if that's a concern. This is your space to write whatever you want to write. So a commitment to do it. A journal, a notebook, and a pen. So as I said, you know, an exercise book. This is just a $10 book that I buy from the bookstore. I have a few of them around the house so that I never run out. But just a book to write in. A pen. You could even, and Emma's going to talk about art shortly. If you like to draw, you might have some colored pencils or some felts. You might even draw as you journal. That's absolutely okay. So whatever works for you, do it in your journal. Time frame. If this is new for you and you're thinking, oh, okay, I'm making the commitment, I'm gonna give it a go. 5 minutes. Grab yourself a cuppa, find a spot. If you're in bed, sit up in bed and just give yourself 5 minutes to write in your journal. Okay, the key is to start. All those rules that you see about journaling, if they're holding you back, then we just push them to one side. There is no right or wrong. The key is to start. So a commitment to do it. And remember all those benefits of journaling. Imagine being a little less stressed. Imagine feeling calmer. It'd be worth it, right? So a journal, a notebook, a pen, some pencils, felts, if you want to do some drawing as well. And start with 5 minutes. Okay, so let's make this easy for ourselves to develop the practice of journaling. So what do you write about? You know, I've talked about thoughts and feelings. So literally, whatever it is that you're thinking. So as you sit down with your journal and your pen, you go, what's been on my mind today? Or what's happening right now in my head? What am I thinking? And write that down. Or how am I feeling? And write that down. If you pick up your journal and you're looking at the blank page going, I have no idea what to write. This is crazy. This is silly. I'm no good at this. Write that down. Just write it. What's happening is as you write that, the resistance that you're feeling will dissipate. Just start writing. It doesn't need to make sense. It doesn't need to be like profound. Like some people think, oh my God, I've got to be really deep and meaningful and it's got to be life-changing and world-changing. It's like, seriously, some of my journal entries, I look at them and go, clearly not a great day, clearly didn't know what I wanted to say, because they'll start with, this is really dumb. I don't even know where to start, but I'm making a start. The key is pick up your pen and paper and just write. Now, if it helps to get you in the mood, as I said, you could grab a cuppa, sit in a comfy place. You might have some essential oils. I also have a candle that I sometimes, like I've got this going now while I'm talking with you. I sometimes journal with a candle going, maybe some music, maybe set the scene if that helps as well. And if you're the sort of person who really appreciates having a prompt to start you off, I've got some prompts here on the screen that you could use. And these aren't the only ones. These are just some that came to mind. So you could keep a list of these. You could print out a list and just tuck them into your journal so that when you sit down, you could always pull them out and go, gee, that one, I'm disappointed about something. Maybe that jumps out at you, so you could use that. So I'll just run through those prompts and share some of those with you. What thoughts do I keep thinking? How do I feel right now? What am I grateful for? And why am I grateful for that? What do I want? What do I need? What am I afraid to say or ask for? And this one in particular, for people who and I can put my hand up for this one as well. When we're unwell, sometimes it feels like we always need to ask someone for something. We're always needing some help, and we can hold back a bit. So this is a really useful one, I think, for just getting down on paper, what is it that I want to say or ask about, and just work through it in our own way and find some peace with, yeah, I do need to ask for some help. What feels heavy, what feels light. So sometimes when we talk about how we're feeling, it can be useful to describe it. And it maybe there's a heavy feeling, or maybe I'm thinking in terms of colors now, very much jumping ahead to Emma's session, that maybe you've just feel like there's an oppressiveness, a darkness, a sort of a dark, I don't know, black, sort of weighing you down. You can use these expressive words. You know, what's feeling heavy? What's feeling dark? What feels light? I feel lost. I feel overwhelmed. I'm disappointed about. What helps me feel calm? What am I proud of myself for? So these are just some ideas if you like to work with a prompt. I'm just going to quickly flick to the questions in case they're great. Okay, so someone's just asked if there's Joanne, if there's a similar benefit to typing as opposed to writing. So my first go-to would be to write, because what that does is it engages your brain and many of your senses in a different way than typing does. So what do I mean? If you are writing in your journal, the act of holding the pen, the feel of the paper, the eye, brain, hand interactions, they're all very powerful for helping process your thinking, for calming. Now, having said that, I can appreciate that sometimes it may be not practical. It may not be as easy for you to write. So if you do type, I'm not saying don't do it. See how that goes for you. If naturally you feel drawn to that, if it's easier, if it means you're going to journal, then do it. The first go-to is the writing with pen and paper. Typing, if that's your thing, then just do it, okay? And again, if you Google search that, there's lots of advice. If it says don't type, then I would say, Joanne, ignore that. If typing is your thing, do it, okay? The key is get those thoughts and feelings out. So let's, yeah. So journaling, remember, it's a reflective practice. It helps us better understand our thoughts and our feelings. It's a fantastic way to get clarity, to unpack something that might be troubling you. Also a great way to acknowledge what's going well and to really amplify that. Remember, our brains have this negative bias. And so by default, it's going to see, notice, hang on to all the kind of the threats and the negative stuff really easily. We really have to make an effort to bring in the positive, the progress, the successes, the lessons, the things that we're grateful for. Incredible benefits from journaling include reducing some of that stress we're experiencing, reducing how often we feel stressed, building our resilience, supporting our nervous system, our immunity. Those are really, really good things, aren't they, at any time, but particularly when we have cancer. And look, let's ditch some of those rules that might be stopping you and simply focus on start. Make a commitment to journal. Grab a book, a pen, and a start. And as Joanne asked, look, if typing is the easiest option for you, if that feels good, if that works best, then by all means do that. So I'd love to hear how you go with journaling. If you want to get in touch and let me know as you develop this practice, please let me know. I've just included, I've got a website there, and you can find me on social media as well. Do drop me a line and let me know how you go with journaling, the benefits you gain from it. And if you find resistance to it, let me know that as well, and happy to share some more tips. And I think we can hand back to Natasha if I stop sharing my screen now. And hopefully that's inspired you to either start journaling, or if you already journal, maybe there's something new that I've shared that you might include in your practice.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tracy. That was so useful and such a wonderful overview. And for anyone who got their packs in the post, there's a journal in there ready for you to kind of get started. So
Fantastic.
awesome. Thanks, Tracy.
No worries.
All right. So I'll now introduce our last speaker, Emma Toy, who will be sharing with us a little bit of information about therapeutic arts. Emma is a trained artistic therapist living in Marlborough, New Zealand. She provides one-on-one and small group therapy sessions for private clients of all ages, and also works with children in schools through Creative Kids Trust. So I'll now hand over to you, Emma.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Well, those were two really wonderful presentations, and I hope through this you actually find something that resonates with you and give something a go to help support you in your journey to well-being. I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about the therapeutic arts, and on purpose I didn't call this session art therapy because I think sometimes that can feel a little bit too formal or a little bit too heavy for people. You might actually just be looking for something to support your well-being on your journey. So I'll probably during this talk use both terms, but just know that art therapy and the therapeutic arts are really about using art and the artistic process to help us find a sense of well-being and a sense of balance. It's about the process rather than the outcome. You don't have to be an artist or want to be an artist to find healing and a sense of health and well-being through art activity. You just have to really feel that that is something you want to try and to get some enjoyment from it. A little bit about me. My name's Emma and I live in Marlborough, and I actually used to work in the corporate world and the government world, and that's how I met Tracy. But after I had my two children, I decided that something was lacking for me in that space, and for all of my life I've just been enamored with colour. Colour is just such an amazing thing, and it's around us everywhere we look. Sometimes we forget to look up and enjoy it, and so I decided to go on this journey of looking into the therapeutic arts, and 5 years later I finished my training as an artistic therapist in the Hawke's Bay, and I've been really, really lucky and grateful to have found a group of therapists working in Marlborough that I can connect with. And through that journey I actually work with a lot of children who are experiencing anxiety, sometimes mental health concerns like depression, neurodiversity, but I also work with adults who may be on a journey to through illness and treatment, and also with adults who are experiencing addiction and are going through treatment for addiction here in Blenheim. So I'm very humbled to be able to do this work. What are the therapeutic arts? I thought I'd give you a bit of a 101 on what is art therapy and what are the therapeutic arts. It's essentially the use of the artistic process, art, painting, drawing, anything creative, could be poetry, could be music, the creative arts, to help us express and explore feelings that may actually be in our subconscious. They may be right at the top of our mind. So it's the use of the artistic process to help us move towards feelings of well-being. And there's a lot within that. So in my practice, I use quite a lot of painting, but probably my key things that I think are really important in a practice are what techniques you use for somebody, whether you have painting, charcoal, drawing, pastel, how you bring that for the person, helping that person to feel in a safe space where they can explore what's going on for them through the use of art materials and come to some resolution and reflection through that. I know Tracy just talked about reflection, and that's such an important part and something we sometimes we run out of time to do or we forget to do, and it's really, really important. If you come to me for a session, or if you go and find an artistic therapist near you, if you think this is something you might want to explore, probably what will happen is that person will want, that therapist may want to meet you to meet you and to understand more about your journey, a little bit about you, so that they can then figure out what sorts of things you might do together. And then from there, they'll put together a little plan for you, and you will be part of that planning process. And then you might see that person once a week, probably for about an hour. And in those sessions, you will create. So you will use all sorts of mediums and just work through that creative process. And the therapist is there to guide you on that journey and to help you feel safe and supported, to bring warmth, a little bit like going to a yoga class. In fact, sometimes I say art therapy is a little bit like yoga for the soul. So you will be guided, but also there's freedom in there for you to express yourself through colour, through movement sometimes, playing with the paint, drawing, and to understand something about you and your journey and to come out to some resolution. I haven't prepared a PowerPoint today because I've actually come to the realization that I'm quite a manual person and I'm not that great with technology, but I thought I would show you a few examples of work that that we have done, that I have done in therapeutic sessions with clients. When I paint with somebody, if I think painting is going to be something that they'll enjoy, we use a really big brush and big paper and watercolor, and that is because watercolor is transparent. It brings beautiful, beautiful color, but it's not heavy and it's not thick. It actually lets you breathe through the color, so you can have an amazing experience of color, moving it with water across the page with a big brush. I'll encourage you to put your feet on the floor, to sit up and to breathe so that you open up your lung space. Breathing is so important for relaxation, and I'll take you through a process using that color. And we might work simply with one color, with blue, but over a course of 7 sessions we might move towards different colors. And this is actually a series I put together for somebody who was feeling very anxious, going through treatment and needing to find some space to breathe and some light. So we moved from our blues, our grounding blues, and started to bring in colour and movement each week with the brush, just feeling into those colours really, really slowly, letting each colour sink in, bringing the blue on first, bringing yellow down from the top, and then exploring what happens when we bring the yellow into the blue and find that beautiful green space. When we walk through the forest, we feel that green, and the green is that real life energy. It's something that we associate with a state of health and well-being, that colour green, being alive, and it's so wonderful to paint with it and to have that image. Bring more light in. We then moved into bringing warmth from the top, bringing in that beautiful, beautiful orange and warmth, just to bring that feeling of standing under the sun. And then we brought in rose madder, a little bit of red at the top. And you can see here we're really gently moving from just working with single colours and a little bit of movement into feeling something, feeling a space. We've almost created a landscape, but not quite. Now, we might never get to that landscape, but we've experienced all of those colours on the page and moved towards this feeling of sort of light and joy. And so therapeutic arts really are about finding that space within yourself to create self-reflection, to find some joy, to create positive neural pathways. Our brain will default to the negative, as we've seen in Tracy's presentation. It's really good at defaulting to the negative. We have lots of practice of doing that. And sometimes when we're still and we're not doing things, it will just go there. And so finding something like journaling, like aromatherapy, it might be colour for you, finding something that lifts your mood and just even for a moment moves your thought patterns into something positive. That can change your whole body chemistry. It can help you to relax, to breathe better, but we have to practice it. And so a big part of art therapy is actually helping you to create some routine and some rhythm in your day and in your life. And that can be really hard when you're especially going through intensive treatment or a phase of illness where you just don't have enough energy to get up and do the things that you normally do. It's really important when you can to try and find something that just gives you that little bit of routine. And it could be something as simple as every morning getting up and smelling a beautiful oil. It could be lying in bed and every morning just imagining a scene that you remember from your walk in the forest. It may have been a long time ago. Try to bring those things to mind. And as you get to feel well again, it could be going on that walk every morning, even if it's just around the block or just out to the garden, finding something that inspires you, a little leaf, a petal, or smelling a flower, just to give your brain those a hit of endorphins and something positive to look forward to. Make something like that a part of your routine. Normally our routines are things like get up, have my coffee, have my toast, get the kids off to school, go to work, come back, find something in your day, if you can, that is just that little boost of positivity. It can really help lift your spirits, especially in times of great anxiety. You can also do group art activities, and you might want to look, if you're interested in art therapy and you don't know where to look, you're welcome to contact me through Leukemia and Blood Cancer Foundation for help to find somebody near you. Some therapists work online. I don't, because I'm not really technically minded, but also I tend to work locally mostly. But yeah, find somebody near you. If you're interested, I can help you do that. Group work is a little bit different. You may be at a space where actually you want to connect with people and to share what's going on for you in a safe space, and a therapeutic arts group will help you to do that. A little bit different than going to an art class. Going to an art class can be really therapeutic, and if there's an art class near you and you feel well enough and you think that's something you might like to try, give it a go. If you're going to a therapeutic arts group, it may be a little more reflective, a bit like the journaling, where you're encouraged to go within. The art exercises you do may take you in. They may be designed to sort of create a little bit of self-awareness and do some reflection. And then you will have the opportunity to share with others how that was for you. So as an example, I have my friend Tifity Seeds here with me this week. I'm really lucky that he's come down from the Hawke's Bay, and we've been traveling around different groups some adults, some children, talking about Māori spirituality and Māori culture, and then exploring those the Māori worldview and those stories through art. So again, the art therapy, like aromatherapy and journaling, can help you reconnect spiritually, or to understand other spiritual viewpoints. That can be so enriching, and just something to give you that little boost to want to inquire and find out more. So we have been actually working with a story of creation, the Māori story of creation, in which in the beginning there was the void, the nothingness, and we worked through that with charcoal. From the nothingness came to pull the long night, the dark night, went on for many eons, the darkness. And in that there were Ranginui and Papatūānuku really, really close together like this, squished together. And inside were the 225 brothers, the gods, who really wanted to see the light. And in that they pushed apart Ranginui and Papatūānuku and brought in the light. And that we explored that feeling of, being in the dark. What does it feel like to be in the dark? And to know that there's light out there. How do I get to that place of light? And that's such a metaphorical thing. You can push away the darkness and let in that space of light. And when the light comes in, then you can imagine the growth, the movement, this world that we're in, the beautiful rain, the wind, and the plants growing. And we've been working with the form of the koru, which is a wonderful symbol, a beautiful koru symbol, actually on the first presentation. You see them in the bush, and it's the sign of growth and life. And growth doesn't have to be physical growth. It can be spiritual growth, understanding, soul growth, getting to know yourself. And I think art therapy, there's a koru for you in charcoal. These are all charcoal works. Art therapy can be one way to help you explore those deeper feelings within that may be sitting in the unconscious and bring them to light. There's so much I could say, but I don't want to go on for too long. I actually wanted to show you one technique that you could use at home that's so simple, because you don't actually have to go to an art therapist to be able to enjoy the arts and to enjoy colour. And you don't have to be an artist. There's some really simple things you can do. If you're journaling, like Tracy said, you can just doodle, get in there with your pencils and just draw without even thinking what comes out, what patterns come out. That in itself can just be such a break for our brain. But I wanted to show you one particular technique that I've learned that actually this is my routine. This is what I do most mornings. And in your goodie bag, you may be lucky enough to have some of these soft pastels, chalk pastels. If not, you will have coloured pencils. And if you didn't get some of these, you can buy them at the warehouse stationery. You can buy them online, get them delivered. You can buy them at Whitcoulls. They're about $11 for a packet. And what they look like on the inside are these little chalk pastels. I use them every morning just to do a little relaxation and a visualization, and then to put some colour on the page. It's like a journal entry, but I don't always have words with it. Sometimes I do. And there's a number of ways you can work with this actually. So one idea is actually to remember back to when you went perhaps on a bush walk or a walk outside and you found something beautiful, or you may have noticed the colour in the sky, and to just sit there and close your eyes and just imagine that for a minute, 30 seconds even. Just bring to life those pictures that you see that are in your memory from there. And use a colour and apply colour to the page, whatever you are inspired to do. And I use a little cloth like this. This is just a piece of an old t-shirt actually that I've cut into a little square. You can use an old pillowcase, just cut yourself a little square and wrap it around your finger like a glove, like this, so that the pad of your finger sits tightly under the cloth, like that. Is you're going to use the pad of your finger to apply the chalk pastel. And the reason I use the cloth and don't draw with the pastels, because they can get messy really quick. They create a lot of dust, which is not great to breathe in if your lungs aren't feeling that great. So using this keeps your hands clean, stops the dust, makes it not messy, but also, this is really important, it slows you down. So instead of rushing through, churning out that color, which you can do if you need to work something out, this actually slows you down and helps you to be mindful and present with what you're doing. It's gentle. It's something that doesn't take a lot of energy. So if you're not feeling 100%, if you're feeling low energy, this is still something you can do that's not going to drain you. Sometimes doing artwork can really, take a lot of energy. You have to be careful what you do. This is simple, effective, can be really quick. Put your cloth on your finger. Choose your color. Choose a color you want to work with. You can hold that color in your other hand and rub the cloth on the pastel. A couple of times is enough just to get some of that beautiful color on the cloth. And then in your journal, frame yourself a little frame. I use washi tape, paper tape like this, and just apply your color in little circles on the page, really, really slowly like that. Come back, take more color, keep coming back to your pastel. Don't be afraid to do that, and just apply more, and you'll build up really, really slowly on the page that beautiful color. And if you want to use another color, you can blend them in. Find a little clean space on your cloth. Get a new cloth, choose another color, and just really slowly bring that in onto the page. And the beautiful thing with this is that you can do one of these in 2 minutes. If you're not feeling good, make yourself a tiny little frame. Just have one little dose of color in the morning. Think of it as a medicine. If you're feeling a little more energetic and you've really got some colors in your mind you want to get down, make yourself a bigger frame. And in the end, when you're finished, you can just peel off your tape like this, and you have a beautiful clean edge around. And hey presto, there's an artwork. And super, super simple. You can just use one color like that. There it is. A little tip: if you're applying the washi tape, sometimes it can tear your paper a little bit. I always stick the tape to my shirt first. So rip off a little piece, stick it to my shirt, and then stick it on the paper. And that way you won't get any little tears. So really, really simple. Another idea for that is, if you've been journaling and some things came up for you that were quite deep and unsettling, or some negative feelings, it's okay to express that too on the page. You might think, oh, I'm really feeling those murky browns and dark colors today, and just put them out there, put them on the page. And sometimes that's enough just to kind of get it out and to lift it and express what that was like. It can be quite powerful to do that on the page. And then perhaps after that, if you still feel like you haven't quite come to resolution, think, how do I want to feel today? If that's how I felt today, if that's how I feel now, how do I want to feel? And just give yourself a minute to really imagine something of how you want to feel. Is it lighter? Do I want to feel lighter? Do I want to feel pretty? Do I want some pretty colors? Just anything. And then look at your colors in your pastel box, get some inspiration, grab that color and go for it, and transform. You can transform your mood through a process like this. Something else I really like to do is to use a verse or a poem. So you might have a poem you particularly like, something that conjures images for you. One thing I would say is to be careful what you choose. Choose something that really does resonate with you and makes you feel good, and creates beautiful images if you're going to do that, so that you can reinforce those positive pathways and positive feelings. So I might now just ask everybody to sit quietly, relax your shoulders, take a deep breath into your lungs, let that settle, take another breath. And just relax your gaze down. If you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes. And I'm actually just going to read you a really short verse. And I want you to be mindful of what images come up. Just let those images arise in your mind. This is a really beautiful one. So relaxing your eyes, closing them if you feel comfortable. Peaceful blue, everywhere around me. Silent peace in my soul. The spirits of the universe speak. Let stars shine in your human body. Shining stars, warming stars. I'm just going to say that one more time. Peaceful blue, everywhere around me. Silent peace in my soul. The spirits of the universe speak. Let stars shine in your human body. Shining stars, warming stars. Just take another deep breath. And then just sit with that a little bit and recognize what images arise for you when you hear that verse. And this is one that I just did, you know, little pastel mood, soul mood we call them, that I just did after hearing that. Another one I've done previously with that same verse, just blue, dark from the bottom to light at the top. Really simple, one color. So that's, yeah, a really, really simple practice that you can do at home, and that just gives you a dose of medicine. I think of color as medicine. And if you can't get yourself to your pastels, but you want a dose of color, close your eyes and just really try to conjure up that color. You can imagine yellow shining from your heart like the sun. Blue, imagine blue unfolding from the outside coming in, and just try and channel that energy towards visualizing a color. And you've given yourself a dose of color, a little bit of art therapy just from sitting in your seat or lying in your bed and imagining it, much like going out into the forest and feeling those beautiful greens and that air and the browns, the earthiness underneath. All of those things conjure images for us, and those can bring great relief and great healing when we need it most. So you don't have to go out and find an art therapist. You don't have to join an art class. There's really simple things you can do at home to support yourself. Get into your journal, use your pastels in your journal. If you've written something, you can illustrate it, just put some color over the top. As a child that I've been working with has done a series of these color moods, and we've put them into a little concertina book, and he's going to do a little poem next to each one. Quite beautiful. He's been working hard on this. Each week, one little mood, and that's it. That's the therapy for him. He comes in and he does that, and it's nice to present it, to wrap it up, keep your journal somewhere special, and make it a little ritual. Make something special of it. There's one more thing I wanted to read you, and that's actually something Tracy triggered for me. I thought something about that explains artistic therapy in a really nice way, and I'm going to end with this. So thank you for listening, and I hope you've found something in this presentation for you. If you have any questions, please let me know. I can answer them in the question section, but I'll just leave you with this nice little poem about artistic therapy. The artistic therapy creates in the human being the bridge to reflection, so that he is grounded on the earth, enriched with the force of discernment, and finds his way back to the source. And here's a little colour mood I did in response to that. So that's me, thank you. I'm going to hand you back now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Emma. I think you've really made art therapy feel so much more accessible and achievable to everybody who would have tuned in today. So we really appreciate that. What I'll do now is I'll invite all of our speakers to come back to the room. And anyone who's watching at the moment, if you haven't yet already and you had a question in your mind, please feel free to pop it into the Q&A, as we're going to be doing our Q&A session now. And I can see we've got a few questions, so I'll just invite our speakers to come back and join us. Cool. Welcome back, guys. I think we'll get stuck into the questions. We've got around 10 minutes or so to work with. So the first one here is for Carol Rose. Any suggestions for aromatherapy products to help with fatigue?
Okay, yeah, I think the fatigue is an interesting one, because it's whether it's mental fatigue, physical fatigue, or a combination of both. And there's been quite a lot of research done with lavender, the beautiful lavender true, the high altitude lavender, a 3-minute foot bath, and then that was followed by a foot reflexology, just simply using lavender essential oil. And you can blend lavender with things like bergamot or Roman chamomile and geranium, which is a very useful blend that can take somebody into that deeper space of calm, give somebody a more restful, peaceful sleep, and sort of have a restorative effect in the morning. Certainly massage, you would need a shorter duration, as I talked about the hand or the face or the feet, if you were going to use massage. Cypress is a really lovely essential oil. Any of those, the trees, you know, we've had these beautiful discussions about going through connecting with nature and the colors, and bring that aroma of nature into it. So you could lean into our indigenous manuka and carnuka, and you don't have to. It's a bit like what Emma was talking about. You don't have to buy essential oils. They can be expensive. So you can just take sprigs and twigs of manuka and carnuka and rub that between your fingers, or the tree bark, or any of the citrus oils. They're really uplifting, especially lime and grapefruit and lemon, beautifully uplifting, very good for morning time and during the daytime. And it really helps clear that mental fog, that brain fog that comes down, particularly for those of you who are having intensive chemotherapy treatments. So sometimes I'll make a little forest blend out of sort of the tree oils, so cypress, manuka, carnuka, the spruces, pine, and then I'll add a little drop of lemon, because that just gives that extra uplift. And you can just have a little mixture of that and put a drop in a tissue and just take that with you. Or you could just use citrus fruit and just zest it, you know, even just scraping your fingernails on the rind, you'll get that essential oil, those volatile components that are in the rind, and keep it quite simple. Or cut a lemon and squeeze it out and pop it into your foot bath, and you can roll your feet on a lemon in the foot bath. So we can use it either naturally, but particularly for people who might have sensory acuity. You know, if you've got a high sense of smell, an essential oil might be just too strong. So just lean into our natural resources that we've got.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't think it was planned that we had a theme of going out into the forest, but it was just perfect.
I know, it's amazing. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. And we've got another question here for Emma. With art, I'm not very creative. Does colouring books and colouring in the lines have a calming and therapeutic effect as well?
Yes, absolutely. Anything that sort of brings you in and helps you to focus on something and forget other things that are going on around you can be very, very calming and relaxing. One thing I would say is that we're actually all creative in our own ways. It doesn't have to be through art, by the way. I mean, you may be creative with your cooking or writing, or how you look after your family. Creative. We are naturally creative beings as human beings. So yeah, absolutely, anything that you find that inspires you and takes you to that place of feeling relaxed, do it. If you have coloured pencils and a colouring book, it's a great thing to do. Very mindful, helps you to be present.
Awesome,
Yeah.
thank you.
I can see there's another question underneath. I'm terrible at art. Can this therapy be for those of us who are not gifted in art? Yes, absolutely, 100%. This is not about producing beautiful artworks at the end. This is about experiencing a process. And in my session, so every art therapist works differently, by the way, but in my training, I've trained in a form of art therapy that was developed by Margarita Hauschka under the impulse of Rudolf Steiner education. And it's very much a curative form of art therapy. So I will work with you and come to understand you and use colour as medicine. And I will probably think, oh, this person probably needs to work towards yellow. And I will take you through a series of guided exercises that get you there. And if things aren't working, we may adjust along the way. But I guide my patients every step of the way. You are never given a blank piece of paper and said, create something, because I find that terrifying. I will hold your hand every step of the way and get you there. So you don't have to be an artist, and the outcome is not to produce beautiful art, it's to experience those colours, to experience the relaxing way of painting, to experience the darkness of the charcoal and what that feels like, to be able to talk about it if you need to talk about it, or to be able to go away and process it in your own time. So that's really, yeah, how that, I hope that answered the question. Yeah.
Absolutely, thanks.
Thoughts on digital painting for art therapy? As you probably guessed, I'm not very good at digital things, but my boss actually from my last job was really into digital painting, and he did some amazing work, and my daughter is really into it too. Absolutely, like the colouring, if it's something that gets you inspired and takes you to that place of creativity, yes, go for it.
Awesome, thank you. I actually think we've got another one here for you, Emma. Could we have a copy of the lovely verse that you told us about, the one with the peaceful blue and the stars?
Absolutely. What's the best way for me to do that? I could put it in the chat, but it might get lost, so I could email it.
Yeah, send it over to us and then we can share it somehow.
Okay.
Yeah, cool, thank you. We have a question here for Tracy. I find when I'm journaling, my thoughts are very negative. Sometimes I wonder sometimes if it's unhelpful. Do you have any tips?
And when I read that question, I immediately thought about Emma's examples of the artwork, and it's really important that we start where we are. If your thoughts are negative, then that's what we need to process. So write them, and then as you write them, what we're looking for is movement towards how do we start to bring in some positivity. So just like Emma's painting showed that, the really dark, the darkness, the heaviness, and then the lightning coming through. We don't want to jump. So just because we're having negative thoughts, we're not bad, we're not doing it wrong. We are where we are. And if that's what you write about, once you feel like you've got that down on paper, the key is to go, okay, now how do I bring in some lightness? What's my next step? What's going to help? Is it that I just need to take a moment, and maybe if they're into the essential oils, it might just be taking a moment to use some of the citrus to find that moment of uplifting, head outside into nature. As Emma said, the color. So how do I bring in some lightness? So we don't want to miss that bit. We want to have in our process, how do I just start to shift? Once I've acknowledged the negative, the thoughts, the stuff that feels heavy, how do I start to shift myself? So yeah, the aromatherapy, hop outside into nature, think about the colors. Yeah, so make it a conscious part of your process. But certainly there's nothing wrong with that. You got to get it out. Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
Awesome. And we have another question here for you, Tracy.
Yeah.
I've always read that one thing you should do is journal as soon as you wake up. I prefer to do it later in the day or in the evening before I go to bed. What would you say is better?
So this is where we've got to ditch all those rules, because likewise, if you search further, there'll be people who say, oh no, you need to do it at night, or you need to do it here. You need to do it when it's right for you. You know, figure out the best time. And, you know, you might like to do it first thing in the morning or the middle of the day or in the evening. It doesn't matter what somebody else says. The key is that you do it and it feels right for you. So yeah, do it in the evening if that works for sure. Yeah.
Cool. And I have a question here. I think it could go out to the group. So if anyone wants to jump in, is watching TV considered a relaxing activity?
It might depend on what you're watching and why you're watching. There's no one answer to that. I don't find TV particularly relaxing, so my immediate response is, oh no, but that's a personal response. If you're watching something that you enjoy, you find calming, great. If you're watching it to escape because you're trying to run away from heavy feelings or stuff that you don't want to process, then no, that's not great. So it's a very, and I look forward to Carol Rose and Emma commenting as well. It's just like, I think it's a very contextual question. Like, what are you watching and why are you watching it?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think to be mindful of how you feel when you turn the TV off. Does your mind feel relaxed, or does it still feel busy? Because although I do it quite a lot, jump on the couch, oh I'm so tired, like, jump on the couch and watch something on TV, but then I find when it's finished I've been processing all of that mentally while I'm watching it, but I haven't been creative. It's been happening to me. So sometimes you need time after you're watching TV, just to have that downtime. But for example, if you're watching before you go to bed, give yourself enough time just to decompress from that. And, you know, every night before I go to bed, I just go outside, look at the stars while I'm doing my teeth and have a couple of breaths and then come back in. Do something like that just to clear your mind afterwards.
I think you've just read my mind, Emma, because I was just thinking about that connection with trying to sleep, because a lot of the sleep disturbance management, when I'm working with somebody on sleep disturbance, it is because they're on their, either on the TV or on their tablet or phone, and it's putting that technology to one side for at least an hour, at least, if not more, and just change the ritual around. And it could be TV, but it also could be, you know, if you're immersed in a book and it's a busy, active book, it may be just too overstimulating, and we just need to let our brain start to relax before we go to bed, and then we can go into that lovely slumber. So yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, guys. I'm just aware of the time, so there's a lovely comment that's come through that I thought I'd share, and then we'll wrap up our Q&A. So someone's mentioned, I found meditation really helpful. Also, as Emma suggests, taking notice of the birds, my plants, the many aspects of the natural world. The birds, I talk to Tui whenever I can. I thought that was lovely. So maybe a good way to wrap things up.
Yeah. Beautiful, really beautiful.
And there's
Cool.
mention there of carving, metalwork, ancient ways of woodwork, all of those things. Yep, music, whatever brings you that feeling of joy and connection to something greater than us, but also connection within and with others around us. And with that, my big furry dog has just walked in. I can see the last comment. Happiness too.
Oh, fantastic. And I know that there's a couple other questions, but just for time, I'm probably going to have to wrap us up. And what we'll do instead is just take note of those questions and we'll try to get them answered, and we'll send you over the answers in the days to come. But just to conclude our session, I want to say a huge thank you to you, Carol, Emma, and Tracy for joining us today. We really appreciate your time and your commitment and everything that you've shared with us. To conclude our session, which also will be concluding our Blood Cancer Patient Forum for this year, I'd just like to put out a few big thank yous on behalf of the team at LBC. So thank you to the speakers. We have a few of them with us today, but we've also had a few people join us every week over the month of September. I'd also like to say thank you to the amazing community of patients and families who have joined us across New Zealand. Some of you have tuned in online at home, and some of you have come to our events at our main offices, so we appreciate that. And I'd also like to say a big thank you to Emma Barker and to Georgina Sang, two of the support services team who have been working tirelessly in the background to make this event happen. So thank you to everybody mentioned. And on that note, I'll close our Blood Cancer Patient Forum. Thanks, guys.
Thank you
very much.
Bye.